Well, welcome everyone. My name is Paul Williams. I'm the president and CEO of Project for Pride in Living, and just absolutely thrilled to have you all here today. 3 years ago, I think, Steve Kramer started talking with a number of folks in the city, at the state, in the neighborhood, about the possibility of redeveloping this site. And I think just about everyone in this tent knows how complicated this work is, and how long and how complicated the pathway is to get to a finished product. And we're not quite there yet, but today we are celebrating the groundbreaking for Hamline Station, I think one of what is going to be just a fantastic development and a catalytic project along the Green Line. It's no coincidence that we're here today, so shortly after the opening of the Green Line, which I think has gone remarkably well. June 14th I think was our opening date, and less than a couple of months later, we're here, hearing the bells from the trains coming back and forth. So it's a great project, and really a tremendous opportunity for the development that can happen along light rail lines. For us at PPL, we've actually worked in St. Paul and St. Paul neighborhoods for actually over 20 years. We did a lot of housing work early on in Frogtown, in Summit University on the east side. And this project represents kind of a renewal of our commitment and our involvement in St. Paul neighborhoods. So it's really great to be here. I was joking earlier with the mayor, my former boss, that this is a project where I actually wore a couple of different hats, but I can't take credit for anything on either side of that. I was at the city, and other folks did all the work at the city, and I came to PPL, and other folks had already done all the work at PPL, but it really is fabulous to be part of this and to be here today. I want to start by just acknowledging a couple of folks on the PPL team. My board chair, Rocky Rockenstein, is here today. Another one of my board members, Jan Dick, and then our housing team, especially Barb McCormick, Chris Wilson, Chris Detling, our project manager, who I think has added at least 14 years in dog years to his life working on this project. So we're going to have a number of folks come up and just share a few remarks with all of you. The first person that I want to introduce is Mayor Chris Coleman. So 25 years ago, I've known the mayor actually since early years of grade school, but 25 years ago, the mayor and I started working together on issues in Frogtown. And one of the things that I give the mayor tremendous credit for is the mayor was a resident in that neighborhood. And the mayor put serious sweat equity into this community and into that neighborhood, doing some hard work early on around a lot of these issues along University Avenue. Years later, as a city council member and then as mayor, one of the big commitments that he made was that, we can't just invest $1 billion in a light rail line, in a train track. In fact, we need to think about what happens beyond the rail, which is one of the phrases that's become so powerful in the work along the Green Line. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Mayor Chris Coleman.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you to PPL for your incredible work in bringing us to this day to celebrate the groundbreaking on this, what's going to be a really remarkable project. The fact of the matter is, Paul referenced work that I did in Frogtown and Paul did many years ago. And in those days, it was really kind of almost a pipe dream to believe that we would get to a point where you would see a project like this rise up along University Avenue, because there hadn't been investment for a decade. There had been a series of disinvestment, a series of people that took their money out of this community. And while there was always a core group of people that believed in the future and believed what could happen along University Avenue and understood the importance of this central portion of our city and what it meant to the development of the rest of the city, there was just that small handful, and quite frankly, the money was going elsewhere. And so as we did have that conversation about light rail, it was so much more than just moving people from point A to point B. It was about building community. It was about creating opportunity. It was about making sure that people could get to jobs, people could get to the University of Minnesota, people could get to either downtown, to all the things. But ultimately, it was about making sure that everyone in this community had a place on University Avenue. Whether you had been in the city of St. Paul for decades or generations, or whether you were a new immigrant to this community, whether that was from distant shores or from other parts of this country, this was about creating opportunity and community for all. And so what we celebrate here today is really a remarkable step along that journey. It is about creating that opportunity. It is about bringing all of the partners together to make these things happen, and to use this green line as a catalytic piece of future development. Again, not just about moving people, but about building community. Moving people is the easy work. You can get people from point A to point B in a lot of different manners, in a lot of different ways. But the fact of the matter is, building community takes people rolling up their sleeves, people willing to invest their resources, partners from the state, partners from the local level, partners from the nonprofit community, and then all of a sudden you can see this beautiful vision that will rise from this corner starting today. So to PPL, to Councilmember Stark, to the Met Council, to the state, to every one of our partners that has been a part of this, I want to just say thank you for believing in the future of this community, for understanding the commitment that it would take to rebuild it, and the hard work that is really getting us where we need to go. So thank you and congratulations.
Thanks, Mayor. One of the things I want to do is just, I'm going to continue saying thank you profusely here for the next half hour. So I do want to say, from the city, the mayor mentioned a lot of folks who worked hard on this at the city. I know Eduardo Barrera is here from the St. Paul Plan and Economic Development, has been the project manager on the city side of this. And many, many other folks at the city who have worked and continue to work on this project. I also want to say thank you to Michael John Olson and the Hamline Midway Coalition. We've had a great partnership with the neighborhood. The neighborhood recognized the value and the impact of this project, and neighborhoods don't always step forward like that. So huge kudos, and please give a round of applause to the Hamline Midway Coalition. Not surprisingly, key to neighborhood support and key to neighborhood vitality in this area has been the council member from this district, Russ Stark. Russ has been one of the leading thinkers around community development for a long time, long before actually he got to the city council and his work with University United. So another forward-thinking, progressive community development practitioner who happens to also represent this neighborhood, Councilmember Russ Stark.
I just wanted to say a few words. It's a big day for St. Paul and for this neighborhood today. It really is. For those of us who live in the neighborhood, seeing some of this dirt and some of this 50-year-old asphalt finally move is going to be a really exciting thing, I got to tell you. Not only are we going to have 108 new homes here on the site, I think that's the right number, but also new stores, new vitality. And it's being done, and it was designed in a way that's really going to fit in nicely to the neighborhood. Right behind us, behind the alley, as you can see, we've got single-family homes. And so the design of projects that are in locations like this, where we're sort of blending University Avenue and the Green Line into the neighborhood, becomes really important. And PPL did a great job working with the neighborhood and being considerate of those needs. This is really the first, in some ways the first of a new model of development along University Avenue on these lots that aren't very deep. They only go as far as the alley. And it's really going to, I think, help point the way for how this avenue can look more and more over time. The avenue, as many of you know, historically was really, in the last 75 years, has been a lot about cars. It's been about moving cars, it's been about selling cars. And that's changing, obviously. The train is changing that. And this site will change in terms of being a place where cars were sold to being a place where people are living, a place where people are shopping and moving around our community in a very different way. So thank you to PPL, to the neighborhood, to the mayor, and to Paul for both of his hats of support on this project. It's a really big day for St. Paul and a really big day for Hamline Midway. Thank you very much.
Another one of our partners has been the state. Again, as all of you know, you take about 15, 20 different funding sources, you throw it together, and then you take hours and hours and hours of brain damaging type of complexity, and out the other end comes wonderful projects like these. Mary Tingerthal, our state Commissioner of Housing from Minnesota Housing, is one of those folks who's been in the work and in the trenches with many of us for literally for decades, and we are fortunate to have her at the state. She worked very hard on this project, particularly with Steve Kramer, our former director at PPL, on really bringing this to reality and working through a lot of really tough issues. So please join me in welcoming Commissioner Mary Tingerthal.
Thank you, Paul. And Paul is right that my first introduction to this particular project was not a particularly happy one. I had to call up Steve Kramer in fall of 2012 to tell him that it had not been selected for funding by the state. And he was not a very happy camper, I will say. But I reached out to Cecile Bedore, another person put a lot of hours into this project, and suggested that all of the key government funders get together and figure out how the heck we were going to get this to the point where it was going to be a project that we could both select, that we could both put the dollars behind, and really make this happen. And the PPL staff really dug deep, as did the Minnesota Housing staff. I don't see Ted Talashi here, but he is the underwriter who really shepherded this through some very difficult selection processes. I do see Jerry Narlock at the back, who now starts his hard work in terms of getting this project up out of the ground and into reality. And I'm just so excited to see this as one of, frankly, many projects that Minnesota Housing has been able to bring resources to along University Avenue and in the immediate surrounding area, really all spurred by the leadership of this community, the mayor, the council, the Metropolitan Council, and others, to really bring the Green Line to University Avenue and really bringing that transformation to this neighborhood and neighborhoods all along the Green Line. So congratulations to everyone, and we really look forward to moving ahead quickly and seeing this as a place where 108 families are soon going to live. Thank you.
In addition to actually building the light rail line, the Metropolitan Council has been another significant partner, and in the last year or two started actually putting money into transit-oriented development projects, of which this was one of the early recipients, and over $3.5 million from their transit-oriented development fund went into this project. And so it was a significant infusion and something that really helps accelerate the project. And so I'm pleased to have the representative from this district on the Metropolitan Council, John Commerce, who also has been a longtime champion of community development in this area. John?
I'm really pleased to be here, not only on my own behalf, but also on behalf of our chair, Susan Haig, and my colleagues on the council, and our number of staff who have been really essential in our partnership in this project. The Met Council awards grants under the state's Livable Communities Act in order to support growth for living wage jobs and the production of affordable housing. In the case of Hamline Station, we've brought funding from the Corridors of Opportunity as well as the Livable Communities dollars. Those Livable Communities dollars, the grants, helped fund the acquisition of the site, and also we'll be financing soil remediation, demolition, placemaking, and general construction that we're looking forward to seeing rise from the site here. I think in many ways that this project typifies the goals of both the Livable Communities Act and also the regional priorities identified in the Thrive long-range plan that we adopted together in May. Among those are leveraging transit investments, supporting the momentum of infill development, creating bridges so that all of us participate in the region's prosperity, investing in a mix of housing choices and affordability levels in our most accessible places, and also shrinking the carbon footprint of our neighborhoods, our cities, and our region. Let me just say briefly, to go back to Paul's earlier comment, that from my professional experience and my civic experience, I've developed a very deep respect for how many people and how much patience is required to bring a project to where we are today. You all know who you are. I respect endlessly your commitment to bring us to this day, and I want to say thank you very much on behalf of the region. Hamline Station is going to be a notable addition to the community. Must be something I said. The project will be a notable addition to the community, the city, and the region as a whole. And so I want to say a thank you again to PPL and the City of St. Paul for the opportunity to partner in this work. Thank you.
The next person that I want to introduce is Adriana Barriotis from Twin Cities LISC. And for those of you who know my history, I spent many, many years at LISC working on neighborhood development, neighborhood revitalization work. LISC has been pushing community development in some very different ways. One of the things that they initiated with the city, with the St. Paul Foundation, with several others, is this whole notion of an accelerator. And looking for some of the early seed funding to accelerate some of these key projects and being very focused and strategic about some of these key projects. This site, the old home site, some of the work down at Victoria and University. And that work has been very helpful to kind of getting this project moving. In addition to that, LISC, along with several other partners in the community, started what was called the Big Picture Project. And the Big Picture Project was really looking holistically at what are the housing needs, what are the development patterns that are going to be taking place across the avenue in the years to come. And both of those efforts were very timely in terms of this project coming to fruition. I'm happy to say that I think we are the first in the ground of those major sites. And again, another reason why I think this is really a catalytic project. So, Adriana?
Well, thank you, Paul, and thanks for highlighting so many of the key projects and support that we could bring to this project and many others along the line. I think one of the things that PPL does so well is builds community and buildings all at the same time. And a couple of other things that I just wanted to kind of note, because I really do think this was some of the earliest work along the corridor to think about, well, how do we create community and bring affordability? How do we create places that people want to choose to stay, can afford to stay, but also attract new residents to this community? And I think it's just a tremendous example of how to think about bridging transit-oriented, commercial, what's been predominantly a commercial area with the residential area that's been talked about today. And I think some of the earliest work in this project is really going to exemplify that. One of the things that LISC and the partners of the Corridors of Opportunity have been able to bring is some of that very early money to do some of that design work, to be thinking about how the commercial space is going to work with the affordable units, how the public space is going to work and create community safety. So I really want to just acknowledge the work of the PPL staff alongside the LISC staff who have worked tirelessly with residents and small business owners around this project. I also want to acknowledge that a lot of things were happening on this site through a partnership that LISC undertook with the city and Springboard for the Arts called Irrigate, where we were able to help support local artists really activating this space as we were starting to create the opportunity for getting to this moment in building and getting under construction. So you all may have seen some really creative things happen on this space over the last few months and last year. So I really want to do a shout out to Oscar and her work and all of the folks that were really activating this space. And lastly, I just want to thank PPL for utilizing resources that LISC and others have to offer to really push ourselves to be thinking differently about our communities, but also making sure that we're creating places for everyone to participate, places of real choice and opportunity up and down the line. I think this project and the work of PPL and many other community developers really hold equitable transit-oriented development at their core, and this is a great example of that. So congratulations, and we're looking forward to seeing you in construction.
Thanks, Adriana. So just some final thank yous. U.S. Bank is our lending and tax credit partner on this project. They've been very active with us, and we're deeply appreciative of that. Excelsior Bay Partners, Kent Carlson is here somewhere, I think, and Anderson Companies, our construction entity, our retail partner, significant contributions that they've made thus far. I mentioned the Hamline Midway Coalition. Central Corridor Funders Group has been supportive of this project. Knight Foundation, St. Paul Foundation, McKnight, Phillips Foundation, number of foundations that have been funding work beyond the rail, and I think it's a good example of how funders can collaborate and really make a difference. So successful, in fact, that the mayor has stolen their director as the new Director of Planning and Economic Development. So kudos to the mayor. Also want to our architects, ESG architects, Meredith Wu, David Graham, Trace Jacques, Rebecca Euland. Tremendous work. One of the things when I first saw this project, actually I think, Mary, the day after Steve called you angry, he called me angry and came in and showed me the drawings and the renderings. I think this is going to be a beautiful project. And community development needs to pay attention to place. We need to build fantastic projects that are of high quality, that add value to the neighborhood. And again, I think this is going to set a new standard for that kind of work in urban neighborhoods. So we need to pay attention to place. There's going to be 2 buildings, green space, actually common areas in between, which again is very much a feature that highlights and connects the neighborhood, does not make it an impermeable place. There will be common space in the building which the community can use and can utilize. Again, how you design these projects really matter, and I think we're going to, I'm excited about what we're going to do this. Andriana mentioned Springboard for the Arts. Great way to utilize the space here. Angela Christie, the great Angela Christie from Faygray Baker Daniels, our attorney who has been working day and night on this project, literally. And then I just want to close with, again, the mayor mentioned how important this neighborhood is, how important this work is. So I bought a car here at Midway Chevrolet years ago. And it was a good car. And I used to ride my bike up and down here. And my great uncles and aunts had a rib joint on University Avenue here. And neighborhood and community matters. And I have to tell you, for all the difficulty of this line and what's gone into it, this avenue looks fantastic. Literally, this avenue, it has not looked this good. We have not seen green space, the greening of the trench. It's a fantastic addition to the community, a fantastic addition to the neighborhood, and I'm just so excited that PPL is going to add yet another asset to this community. So I thank you all for coming today. We are going to step over here and do a little bit of a shoveling of dirt. So get your clickers ready. I do want to say I see our colleague from Hennepin County, Peter McLaughlin, over there, Hennepin County Commissioner Peter McLaughlin. Peter has been one of the absolute champions and has also been a champion of crossing the river and really working collaboratively. So thank you so much for your work, Peter. So let's get to shoveling.